Sure. So when it comes to green shoots in China, in today's context, I see it in travel and I see it in e-commerce, particularly the low-priced part of e-commerce. So I'll talk about travel first. Millennials these days, Gen Z, because of the astronomical real estate prices, where tier one has essentially a 30x multiple, okay, between the housing and income ratio. It's essentially priced out a generation of millennials and Gen Z. That said, though, rent in China is not that expensive. Rent yield in China typically goes for 1% a year. And because rent is not expensive, millennials and Gen Z who rent will have disposable income. And where do they spend it if they can't buy high ticket items like real estate or auto? They spend it on travel and entertainment. So Trip.com, ticker TCOM, is one of the names that I've repeatedly defended on sell-offs inside my investment community, publicly on Twitter, on social media. That is one of the best names to gain exposure to China. And one of the ways that we can evaluate the health of travel is we can look at the National Day holiday week. And the travel figures there were, in my view, quite strong. When we take into consideration the context that China just exited zero COVID fall of 2022. I know that it seems a long time ago, but it actually wasn't that long ago. And consumers are still very scarred from the job loss, the change in opportunity set, the adverse type of business environment that the last 18 months people have gone through. So travel was flat year over year. It was slightly down / flat, depending on the metric that you're looking at. And in the context of such a weak Chinese consumer, flat is actually very, very strong. So TCOM has been one of the names that I've really liked at key technical levels, not a buy at any point, of course, but at key technical levels from a swing, from an intermediate term standpoint. It's been a very good name. Like many names in China and Hong Kong, the sector is a trading battlefield, not necessarily buy and hold. So that's my primary view on China. I think long-term investment in this area is challenged, but it makes for a great trading sector from a multi-day, multi-week standpoint. It's sector by sector considerations. Now, when it comes to e-commerce, a lot of retail investors are very enthusiastic about Alibaba. I like this name too in certain contexts, but I think most retail investors are only familiar with Alibaba.
Right.
And that leaves some significant opportunity cost on the table. I think Alibaba this year is down 15%. Pinduoduo, on the other hand, is up about 20%. Most people don't really care about Pinduoduo, and I know that because on social media, when I talk about Alibaba, my engagement skyrockets. When I talk about any name besides Alibaba, it's as if no one really cares. I've been bullish on New Oriental. I've been bullish on Trip.com. I've been bullish on Pinduoduo. But everyone wants, my opinion on Alibaba for whatever reason. The truth is, Pinduoduo is taking up a lot of market share from Alibaba. And another truth that investors will have to grapple with is Alibaba is also a quasi-political name because of Jack Ma's former involvement, leadership, and IPO's recent history, right? So Alibaba is not just an e-com recovery name, it's also a politically driven name. It's also a geopolitics name, and it's also a name that has to do with regulation because they're moving into AI. So anything in China that relates to AI, in contrast to the US, has to be viewed very carefully. Here in the US, you put AI next to anything, and the valuation almost sees a premium relative to the industry peers. That's not the same in China. When you put AI next to Chinese names, it involves the cybersecurity security administration to watch over how the data is being collected, how the data is being inferred, and then being shown answers to the public. And that's precisely why Baidu has underperformed days after they unveiled advancements to their AI technology. Because the moment they released that, China's cybersecurity watchdog essentially came out and talked about how they're going to review a lot of the data sets before the code is going to be allowed to apply in the marketplace.